Good evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ+ daily evening television news, broadcasting live and available on demand. We are available on all smart televisions, including Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a couple other little things called YouTube and Facebook. It's time to queer up the news. It is Thursday, September 22nd, 2022. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we are going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
I am not Al Ferguson. I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, John Hayden. And this evening we bring you the news and perspective representing the LGBTQ+ community from South Florida, America, and across our planet.
This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ+ evening news show. Whatever happens, unique in LGBTQ+ news, you will see it and hear it.
Happening Out Television Network is a 501c3 nonprofit media platform in the television and radio model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBT+ community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ+ media companies in America, Hotspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network.
Our magazine is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ+ experience in our television and news. Talk and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ+ and broader communities.
All right, well, let's welcome Kishi Chad. He serves as a board member at Unity Coalition, the first and only organization in South Florida for the Latinx and Hispanic and Indigenous LGBTQ+ community. They advance equality. Welcome, Kishi.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me back. I want to announce that we are bringing back Celebrate Orgullo. So if you are free from October 1st to the 8th, please go to celebrateorgullo.com and buy those tickets. We have a lot of great events. Now, let's welcome Bob Hentschel. Bob is an accountant with a local construction company and a member of various LGBTQ+ Disney Facebook groups, including the Gay Gathering at Epcot Food and Wine Festival. He describes himself as a nice widow with a house in Dania Beach, a Disney Vacation Club membership, and a self-supporting cash flow. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you for having me back.
Very popular with that resume at LaBoy and Johnson's.
Ooh.
No comment. Anyway, the 14th annual Gay Gathering at Epcot's International Food and Wine Festival is November 4, 5, and 6, obviously at Epcot. Wear your best purple, the color of fine Marlowe, and join us for Snappy Hour, Friday and Saturday at 5:30 at the Rose and Crown Pub at the UK Pavilion. Let's welcome anchor Franchesca D'Amore. Her vision is to extend education and support on behalf of the homeless, the arts, and the LGBTQ+ community. Currently a proud board member of Safe Schools South Florida and a former board member of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council. She is also the entertainment consultant for My Hollywood Pride 2023. A quote from her: "If I can inspire even one person to boldly live their truth, my job is done." Good evening, Franchesca.
Hi, thanks for that great intro. Just want to give a shout out. We have Kaleidoscope happening November 5th at ArtServe from 7 to 10 p.m. and that's a fundraiser for Safe Schools South Florida. You could go to our website, safeschoolsouthflorida.org, to find out more. And of course, My Hollywood Pride, it's our second, coming up end of January. So make sure you check us out, myhollywoodpride.com.
And Franchesca, Safe Schools South Florida just made a donation to the Stonewall National Museum and Archives to bring banned books and make them available to students free through e-subscriptions.
Exactly. We're very happy that we're able to make these available online for anybody. And then there were also some physical books that were donated. So we've got a lot of work to do. Being censored is not on our list right now. things to do, getting censored, for
That
sure.
is a good thing to avoid.
Exactly. So now let's welcome anchor Frank Perko III. Frank is a seasoned leatherman of the community and is the founder of a new leather club called FALK, the Fellowship of Androphiles with Kinks, and it's in Fort Lauderdale. Frank is also a classic pipe organist and pianist, director of choirs and orchestras, and currently serves as director of music at the Ancient Spanish Monastery in North Miami. In addition, Frank is a realtor for RE/MAX Experience in Wilton Manors. Well, welcome, Frank.
Thank you, Franchesca. Thank you very much. Thank you. I don't have anything to add, so let's move on. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight. In the evening, this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the queer news for today.
Well, let's begin by queering up education. Miami Beach approves an ordinance to say gay in high school despite county school board vote. Queer News Tonight has reported previously on the vote by Miami-Dade School Board to ban teaching LGBTQ+ history topics in high school for LGBTQ+ History Month. The topics proposed were various landmark Supreme Court cases that have allowed for LGBTQ+ rights, including Obergefell, which brought marriage equality. The topics were intended to only be taught to high school seniors. Last week, a resolution created by Queer News Tonight anchor Paul Thomas and Miami Beach Vice Mayor Alex Fernandez was proposed to the city of Miami Beach to overturn the county guidance and continue to teach these topics in high schools within the city of Miami Beach. All members of the city commission voted to advance the resolution with the exception of Commissioner Stephen Minor. Earlier today, Mayor Dan Gelber signed the resolution approving local high school student seniors be taught about LGBTQ+ History Month.
So, Vice Mayor Fernandez, thank you very much for this resolution. I'm very, very honored to be part of it. But do you want to tell us a little bit about the resolution that was just signed by the mayor and our objectives with this?
Absolutely. We need to express disappointment at the lack of action of our Miami-Dade County School Board to say that they're not celebrating LGBTQ History Month. When we celebrate Women's History Month, when we celebrate Black History Month, when we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, it really sends a bad message. And it's an alarming bellwether to the anti-LGBT rhetoric that we hear in our society. So what we're doing here is that we're sending now the conversation to the parents, and we're empowering students to pass their own resolutions, the student bodies, the student organizations.
Right.
Let them have conversations there. And so the funny thing here is that the school board thought that they were quashing a discussion, and what we're doing is, no, we're making the discussion bigger by now sending it to the schools and giving the students a sample resolution that they can adopt as their own.
Fantastic. I have to say, for me to live in a city like Miami Beach that is out in front and saying this is not acceptable, we're not going to let anyone harm our students, and to be so proactive. You were texting me on the weekend. The vote was Friday night. Saturday morning I was getting a text from you. I appreciate it so much.
And
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your leadership, and we have a big responsibility in our hands to protect this community as a welcoming, accepting oasis and being the most progressive city in the state when it comes to LGBTQIA+ rights.
I agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, I love seeing this video, and in fact, Paul was supposed to be on the show tonight. He was at the signing of this resolution earlier today. So we are happy to pick up the story from you and tell it tonight. So thank you so much for your work, Paul. This is going to be fodder for DeSantis and his minions, though. They're going to be able to come back and say, look, this city is going rogue and going right against it. But they're really standing up, I think, for this next generation of kids, because that's who we're abandoning if we don't stand up for them. And you work for safe schools or with safe schools. I mean, you know this mission much better than I.
I am so proud of Miami Beach right now for standing up. Hopefully that will domino effect into other areas where people, you know, students, our kids are so amazing. They're very different from our generation and generations before. I have a lot of faith that our kids are going to stand up and do the right thing. And I think Miami Beach did the right thing today. And I'm really, really happy about today.
Where does this take us going forward then? Or Bob, I'm sorry, you had a comment?
No. You know what? This is really important, and I agree with Franchesca, and I can't help but think how many kids got saved simply because Miami Beach took a stand and said, no way, this is not right. Because, you know, gay teen suicide, let me be specific, gay teen suicide is still an issue. And, you know, I was talking with Franchesca before the broadcast. If I had had this in my day when I was coming up, I might not have had to spend thousands of dollars on therapy that I needed to spend just to get my head on straight. So yeah, I hope it comes to Broward really soon.
I think this is also going to help the gay-straight alliances in Miami Beach and in other areas in Dade and Broward and throughout Florida. So again, kudos to Miami Beach.
Yes,
Rocked it.
And we'll continue to follow this, because I'm sure DeSantis will probably send down one of his minions like he always does. And the opposition, the people who say, we're not even saying teach gay things. We're saying teach the history. Teach the history. And they punch down to the kids. They punch down on the communities that try and support the kids, and they try and silence them and hoping they'll stay silent. You know what? In a time and a legacy of social and online media, they're not going to stay silent. They know how to talk to each other from thousands of miles away or just across the street. So I look forward to seeing how this plays out in Miami Beach.
And now we queer up lesbian culture. These two women could become America's first lesbian governors. Maura Healey and Tina Kotek are running for governor in Massachusetts and Oregon states, respectively. Both these women are poised to make history. If they get elected on Tuesday, November 8th, they'll become America's first lesbian governors. Both Healey and Kotek will be running as Democrats. Tina Kotek has served as Speaker of the House from January 2013 to January 2022 in Oregon. Healey also has been the Massachusetts Attorney General since 2014. With 63% of the vote, she was the nation's first gay Attorney General. Though their current goals and campaign platforms are similar, their entry into politics was very different. Healey's journey started in 2007 when she left a career as a business lawyer to become head of the Massachusetts Attorney General's Civil Rights Division. After 5 years in the role, she ran for Attorney General. On the other hand, Kotek has been interested in public service since the 90s while she was working as president of graduate student government at the University of Washington, where she earned a master's degree in international studies and comparative religion. Kotek says, quote, "I was in a long-term relationship at the time, so I applied for married student housing on campus. I was denied. I filed a discrimination complaint and was denied again. That got me started in saying, I need to stand up for myself and others," end quote. After graduating, Kotek took a job with the Oregon Food Bank and started doing advocacy at the state's capital.
You know, I'm very excited about this. These aren't two token or far, fringe candidates. They are the nominees, and they're running for these state houses, and I think they're going to win. Yeah.
I can't speak for anybody else but me, but as I was reading this story, in the back of my head, I heard Aretha and Annie singing "Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves." And, kudos to these women. I'm going to say something maybe slightly controversial. It's my opinion that women are the superior sex. Because, because, I don't know about anybody else, but it seemed to me the lesbians are always coming out first. Before George Takei, we may have had Rosie or Martina or whatever, but it's like, I for once, let the women lead. Let the women lead.
Hear, hear. And I think this also says a lot about our voters. Our voters are a lot more intelligent than a lot of people give the voters credit for. So I think people are broadening their minds and opening horizons to seeing past somebody's gender, ethnicity, XYZ, and just looking at the credentials of the person and saying, this person qualifies. I'm going to vote for them. So,
now, Frank, you're involved in the community. What do you think of these people getting behind the lesbian candidates as a state and a party?
I think it's great. Yeah, I'm going to have to kick back though, because I don't think any sex is superior. Because I think that was about the most sexist thing I've ever heard in my life. But I do think it's great. I think it's great that these women are finding their way to the top, and we should be voting qualified candidates in. Period. It doesn't matter to me anymore whether they have penises or vaginas. I think what we've failed at in this country is we've just voted the wrong people in, period. And it's time to end that.
Well, I'll tell you, in Massachusetts, Tina Kotek is up again, or is running for an empty seat. The governor is a Republican, but is term limited. And she, like I said, has already won a statewide election with 63% of the vote. There's also an open seat in Oregon as well, where the governor is a Democrat, but is also term limited. So as they go through, I think this is going to be really good. And what I love about the Massachusetts candidate is that she was the attorney general and won by an overwhelming amount. The Democrats are getting crushed on crime issues. Ads even taken out of context, but they're still making their way across the internet and across television. And to have a strong attorney general from a state running for governor, I think is going to send a huge, huge message on where the party stands.
Agreed.
Okay, let's clear up religion. The Southern Baptists vote to expel LGBTQ+ affirming church. The Southern Baptist Convention's top managerial body voted on Tuesday to cut ties with two congregations. First, an LGBTQ+ friendly church in North Carolina, which left the denomination decades ago, and second in New Jersey, cited for unspecified alleged discrimination. The federal government is believed to have begun investigating the Southern Baptist Convention after a consultancy uncovered sexual abuse within the organization, followed by mistreatment of survivors by church officials. Tuesday's voting committee proclaimed that the College Park Baptist Church in Greensboro failed to comply because of its open affirmation, approval, and endorsement of homosexual behavior. The church website shows a mission of inclusivity and, quote, and affirmation saying, quote, "Our church family in Greensboro welcomes and affirms all persons without distinction regarding race, ethnicity, national origin, class, sexual orientation, gender identity, or any other category created by humans. We are an inclusive, fun faith community where persons from all walks of life feel comfortable worshiping and working together to bring Christ's love to the world, doing the best we can and trying not to embarrass Jesus too much," end quote. Baptist congregations are self-governed. That means the Southern Baptist Convention can't force churches to submit to their policies. However, as per the news by Associated Press, they can classify them as not being in, quote, friendly cooperation. And once again, the church decides to shove their morality down other people's throats. And I don't know.
I think it's extremely important that communities of faith reach over the aisle and show support of different communities. When you isolate or discriminate against one community and people feel isolated or they feel like they can't be themselves, you are kind of going against the principles that you say you live by. So I would love to see less hypocrisy in these spaces where they claim to be for all people, because it's extremely conditional, and it's also, we don't need exclusion in this day and age. A lot of people still have a healthy relationship with spirituality and religion, and they deserve to have a space and a place wherever they choose to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a lot of marginalizing within the church community, but there's also a lot of marginalizing in our own community. We've had many discussions here about excluding the T and the L and bringing the G together. How can we continue to fight this? Because we're at a church right now. We are at a church that unfortunately is the exception and not the rule. And by the way, I love that this one church, they're like, oh no, we said girl bye like decades ago. They just haven't been having it yet. The Southern Baptist Convention decided to come back and say it anyway. How can we pull together spiritually as a community, because to link the L and the G and the B and the T?
Well, I think what Kishi said is perfect. I think in our own churches, we have to cross the aisles. And, you know, we have to mend things in our own community first before we can even expand outside of our community. We have to set the example of acceptance, and not even the word tolerance. I don't even like that word. Acceptance and equality. We're all equal at this table, period. So I think the churches need to teach that. Spirituality has many different faces. So we need to start within our, we need to start housekeeping in our own house.
Yes.
I'm going to add that these stories as a man who is, I've worked in the church for 30 years, and these stories are absolutely true. But what we also don't capitalize upon is that there's a whole liberal church out there that everybody ignores. And everybody thinks that the Sunshine Cathedral is the only place it's happening. Well, that's really not true. It's everywhere. There are vast denominations. The Episcopalian Church is wide open pretty much as a denomination. The United Church of Christ is wide open. The Methodists are struggling like hell right now. In fact, their whole denomination is probably going to split over gay issues. But what we tend to not focus on at all is that there are plenty of churches out there who are very open and very awake and very understanding. It's true that these churches do exist, but the truth of the matter is, what we continue to do in the United States is focus on the evangelicals and the people who are against us and the people that are causing the problems. And the real truth of the matter is, if we would focus on the people and on the churches that are not the problems, we would squash them so fast. We give them all the attention, is the point. And as long as we keep giving them all the attention, they're going to get it. And so I have a unique perspective on that because I've worked for the church for a very long time. So.
And have you ever struggled with acceptance in a particular building or congregation?
Listen, I grew up as a Roman Catholic, so
that'd be
but that's why I speak to that even stronger. Is I left the Roman Catholic Church at a very young age, and I have literally served as a church musician every denomination except the Southern Baptists. I've covered Lutherans and Episcopalians and Methodists and United Church of Christ and Episcopalians, and you know, I've covered them all. And my experience tells me that there are far more churches that are good than there are bad. It's just the bad ones get all the attention and they have the big voice. And as long as we keep allowing them to have the big voice, and we don't raise up the voices of churches that have good voices and support them and say, you know, actually you guys are on the fringe, we're gonna continue to see that happen. But we've watched that for decades now play out, that the attention goes towards the villains. It never goes to the good guys. And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And one thing to note on their lawsuit with not treating victims with respect in the Southern Baptist Convention, they say that they're each individually governed. That means each church is basically its own legal entity, much like each diocese is in the Catholic Church is its own legal entity. So you can't sue New York and collect from the Indianapolis diocese, and that's how they're protecting themselves to get around this. If it happened at Church A and Church Z, you can't collect from them. So because they're not a huge thing. Otherwise, we would all have wonderful artifacts and gold lame things from the Vatican in our homes right now.
Well, lordy, it's time to queer up the sports. UMass trolls conservative Liberty University with Pride Day for football game. The University of Massachusetts football team has picked a perfect match for their upcoming Pride Day. On October 8th, they will have a home game against the Christian conservative and anti-LGBTQ+ Liberty University. The football team at the university posted a message on the official Twitter account saying, quote, "Special announcement. Our game versus Liberty on October 8th will be #Pride Day," end quote. The post also included a video showing a football player surrounded by rainbow lights. Liberty University, which was founded by Jerry Falwell, yes, I said Jerry Falwell, one of the 20th century's most powerful evangelicals, is one of the most notoriously anti-LGBTQ+ schools in the country. Their code of conduct says, quote, the liberty way, unquote, and prohibits statements and behaviors that are associated with LGBTQ plus states of mind, such as holding hands with a member of the same sex, or using pronouns that don't correspond to one's sex assigned at birth. The Liberty Way even says students should go out of their way to avoid the appearance of impropriety when it comes to LGBTQ plus identity. On Twitter, UMass fans noticed that for their Pride Day, their team is playing against the team that probably would never celebrate Pride otherwise, while others bemoan the choice of UMass, saying that it is inappropriate to make Liberty's team participate in a Pride celebration because the school is Christian. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I want to go.
Totally. I want to be there for this one.
I do too.
Me too.
When I read this, three things came to mind. A T, and then a he, and furthermore, neener. Because in my world, turnabout is fair play. Okay? This is why, you know, if these people are against us, it's like, karma's a bitch, baby. Have at it. Have at it.
Agreed, completely.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that they're going to be able to get out there and basically give the big middle finger to this particular university. Because let's be honest, they're a political training school, is what they are, at least on their campus. I know they're like one of the largest universities in the country when you count their online students. But obviously, people online can go and get things without having to conform to the Liberty Way. But they're basically a political training ground for the next generation of deplorable Trump-loving Republicans.
And all that entails.
And all that.
And all that, you know, because it's not just homophobia, it's racism, it's misogyny, it's all the, I'll call them isms for lack of a better, it's all the isms. So. Yeah.
I went to University of Massachusetts. I lived in Boston for a while. And let me tell you, I wish I was there for this one. Maybe I got to get a front row seat and make an appearance.
Let's do a report.
Let's go. For sure. Let's do it.
It's going to be cold, though.
Great.
It's going to be cold.
Who cares?
October 8th.
That's fine.
No, it can't be that cold.
No, it's actually not that cold.
Boston in October is pretty cold.
Well, not by comparison to December.
Well, I guess that's
Remember, I lived there for a little while. Okay, I guess.
You know what I really want to see at this? I want to see like a kiss-a-thon during the halftime. I want that to be the halftime.
Get the Jumbotron going.
Exactly.
Troublemaker.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Oh boy.
Well, let's talk about something a little more fun. Let's queer up entertainment. Elton John is preparing for a White House concert set to perform this Friday. The concert will take place on the South Lawn. The event is called, quote, "A Night When Hope and History Rhyme," end quote, a reference to a poem by Seamus Heaney that President Joe Biden often quotes. The South Lawn performance is being organized with A&E Networks and the History Channel. According to the White House, the audience will include teachers, nurses, students, gay rights advocates, and others. Elton John had previously performed at the White House in 1998 during the Clinton administration. He declined an invitation, however, to play at the 2017 inauguration of Donald Trump. As per the information given the White House, Tiny Dancer and Crocodile Rock hitmakers will headline an event where President Biden and First Lady Jill Biden will also speak. The event aims to celebrate the unifying and healing power of music, commend the life and work of Sir Elton John, and honor the everyday history makers in the audience, including teachers, nurses, frontline workers, mental health advocates, students, LGBTQ+ advocates, and more. Quote, Biden has a soft space for John, which can be understood from Biden's 2017 memoir named Promise Me, Dad, A Year of Hope, Hardship, and Purpose, end quote. In the memoir, he mentions singing Elton John's Crocodile Rock to his late son, Beau, as a child, and then, again, years later, when he was dying from cancer.
Oh.
I find this story very intriguing. Being a pop and classically trained musician myself, and a music director, I've always admired the music of Elton John. And his music, 50 years later, from the 70s even, still remains iconic. He's proven himself as a human being and as a humanitarian, and through his tenacity and his dignity. I've had the privilege in my life to witness the man and the musician that had to hide his life and sexuality in order to not be crushed, with no regard to his quality as a man or as a musician. I find it personally awesome to know that when I was young and understanding myself and already in my own fear, that I was also hearing derogatory comments about Elton John, like that queen, filthy queer, or faggot. It's beautiful to see that progress, that this man, this legend, is now playing on the South Lawn and being lifted up.
Ooh.
I'll go one better. Okay, I couple years back, I'm from Philly. Philly. No one likes me. I don't care.
We love you, Bob.
No, but I remember making the comment years ago when the Eagles were doing their parade, and you know, every time a sports team wins, these alleged alpha males, they go and beat their chests, and they're singing a song made popular by a band fronted by a gay man, and the band was called Queen. Hello.
Right.
Hello.
Right.
You know, Elton's always been, or at least not, maybe not always, he's obviously struggled with alcohol and drugs and identity through the 70s and 80s, but he has been such an advocate for our community, you know, for decades since. He was knighted by the late, great Queen Elizabeth II. He has created the Elton John Foundation, which, in addition to throwing a fabulous Oscar party every year, also has donated millions to HIV and AIDS care and research through the years. So I'm going to go around the table now and ask you for each one of you for your favorite Elton John songs, and I'll begin with you.
I would say I'm Still Standing because it's positive and uplifting.
Yeah. Bob.
I have a little bit of a soft spot for, when he sang at Diana's funeral, Goodbye English.
Candle in the Wind?
Candle in the Wind, thank you.
That was Goodbye English Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right.
Definitely Saturday. Saturday night's
yeah.
all right.
Which is why they're having the concert on a Friday, because there could be fights that break out if they had it later in the weekend. Francesca.
I like Rocket Man.
Yeah, Rocket Man's good.
And I like
the
newer
70s
versions
stuff.
of it.
Yeah.
Well, I like the newer versions that he's doing with Dua Lipa, and you know, I like. I don't know. I like all of his stuff. He's iconic.
No, he absolutely is.
He coined the word iconic, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite Elton John song is Skyline Pigeon. He sang that at Ryan White's funeral back in 1990. It was in Indianapolis, which was my hometown. I was a senior in high school. I was Ryan's age. And the compassion that he came in and showed. He didn't just show up to sing at the funeral. He was with Ryan and his incredible mom, Jeannie, for years when Ryan was treated terribly. And he was at the hospital visiting Ryan in the days before he died. And then he sang an amazingly emotional version of Skyline Pigeon. It's not one of the ones that most people recognize him for, but if you get a chance, please go listen to it. The words touch you no matter what stage of life you're in. And we move on and we queer up politics. New book exposes the secret gay cabal of Washington of lies, orgies, and presidents. That's a word we don't use enough, cabal. Secret City, The Hidden History of Gay Washington by James Kirchick offers an in-depth and well-researched account of the underground world of primarily white gay men through presidential administrations from Franklin Roosevelt to Bill Clinton. The focus of the book is primarily white gay men since they were more likely to have positions of power during the racist, misogynistic era that the book covers. Kirchick says, quote, "I do talk about lesbians, but women had very little political power during the Cold War era. It was all about white men, and women didn't have security clearances, therefore that didn't put them on the FBI's radar," end quote. He adds that gay male sexuality was much more policed, particularly by the FBI, while stating, quote, "Unlike gay men, women weren't having sex in public places, and gay bars were far more likely to get raided than a lesbian bar." He also speaks about lesbians and how gay men and their sexuality was only revealed after they died, just because they could be arrested and lose their jobs. Kirchick says, quote, "Of all the gay men in his book, Sumner Wells, who became Franklin Roosevelt's Undersecretary of State in 1937 after serving in various diplomatic roles, was likely the most influential. When Cordell Hull made a plot to try and oust Wells to Roosevelt, or out Wells to Roosevelt, the president protected and defended Wells. He was perhaps one of Roosevelt's top key advisors during his presidency.
Wow.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, if you think of the status of gay people in America, say in the 1950s, this is a community of people who are medically pathologized by the psychiatric community. It says, they say that gay people are mentally ill. They are condemned by organized religion, and it's against the law to be gay. They're criminalized in all 50 states. And to go from that to where we are today, where you have every corporation is celebrating pride, and you have parades, you have an openly gay cabinet secretary, which would have been just unimaginable, and you have legal equality for gay people. It's really an incredible journey.
You tell a lot of different stories and anecdotes along the way, including the lavender scare, which many people may not remember or be familiar with.
Yeah, this accompanied the Red Scare during the McCarthy period, and it was the purge of gay men and women from the federal government, and it began in 1950 around, and it really lasted for, as I said earlier, I mean, in the federal civil service, it lasted until 1975, and then it wasn't until almost 45 years later that gay people are finally allowed to have security clearances. And it's estimated 7,000 to 10,000 people lost their jobs. The number might even be higher because a lot of people quit before they could be found out because they didn't want their sexual orientation to be discovered.
One of the lines in the book, which I think is really powerful, you say, even at the height of the Cold War, it was safer to be a communist than a homosexual. How do you think that some of those themes of the past still resonate today?
Well, I think, again, I mentioned this earlier, this sort of groomer rhetoric, this talk about, well, this attempt to ban, teachers from discussing sexual orientation or gender identity.
Don't say gay bill.
Don't say gay bill in Florida. And it's this association of homosexuality with whatever is the worst possible thing.
Yeah, I mean, he puts it into context that the lavender scare was a real thing, that if you screwed up, you could like point across the table and go, yeah, but I think he might be gay, just to get people off of your tail. And it made our nation less secure than more secure by denying qualified people and threatening them with outing them to their friends and family. And Hoover, who was notoriously most likely family, but he pursued it more zealously than anybody over the course of basically this entire period.
Yeah, and this was not just like a matter of outing too. This was going to destroy somebody's life entirely. This wasn't even like the lives we've known, where it was hard on us. It might even cost us our family. But I mean, this would have destroyed somebody's life completely. You would have no recovery.
When I think about Alan Turing over in England, this is the man who cracked the Enigma code, and look how they treated him. They chemically castrated him, and then he ended up taking his own life. And I have a sneaking suspicion, because we're everywhere and we have networks everywhere, that story from England somehow managed to get over here. And I think even to this day, we have, I won't mention any politicians' names, but I'm sure they're deeply in the closet still.
Oh, plenty.
Sure. Yeah. I feel as if the lavender scare is really nothing of the past. It's now in the present again, with DeSantisism happening instead of McCarthyism. It's a really scary time, and I think it's really important for all of our organizations to band together. And like you had said, we have a great network. We need to really work our networks and become one and united in our community.
And it's not just DeSantis. We've got Greg Abbott in Texas. God only knows who else we've got. I know that there are gubernatorial candidates who...
Oh my God, Rubio's ad just came out is insane. He literally comes out and the first thing he says is, Democrats are trying to make your boys into girls. Quote.
Oh Lord.
It's insane.
There's a psychological term called projection, and that's all I'm going to say on that point.
I'd just like to say, as a child of immigrants, I'm very fortunate to live in this country and to live in a time where me as a queer individual, I actually have access and a platform to create some sort of, not control, but have some sort of influence politically, because I don't forget that in the Caribbean and other parts of the world, queer people are still living in persecution and in fear, and it's illegal to exist in these countries. So I'm grateful that while we still have a lot of issues here in America, look at how far we come and look at what we're doing now.
And can I add to that? Because he ended his segment there by saying, basically saying how bad it was then, and look where we are in Washington now. And I have this. While I believe completely we need to, come together as a community in a way that I don't think we've been for a couple decades now, to be honest. But I really feel that that's part of it. But I also feel deeply passionate about, and it almost tags on what you just said. That's what I'm saying, that at some point we have to quit playing victim, and at some point we need to become strong and be on top, and quit always coming from this perspective of being down. I mean, at some point you have to rise up and stand up and be in control, instead of roll over and constantly have something to bitch about and be a victim about again.
Well, and that points to a question of, I'll speak for myself. I lost friends to HIV/AIDS, and I certainly didn't lose as many as other people I knew.
Sure.
How much did we lose?
A lot.
The people who might have kept us in that mind frame of, hey, we got to be on top. We can't play this victim role.
Agreed. But it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up.
No argument. Yeah. But we just got to, you're absolutely right that we got to remember where we came from. And, I certainly don't have the wherewithal as some of the people I knew back in the day. But, I think if we return back to the old saying of an army of lovers cannot fail, and there's also a little bit of understanding of, I certainly have blind spots around, my go-to is issues with women, but, trans people, I have blind spots around trans people simply because I don't know any. Or if I have, they were certainly flying under my gaydar because it's severely broken. But yeah, we learned to work together, and, if I say something ignorant, I'm saying something ignorant because I just don't know any better.
Sure.
And there's a.
Well, I think that's one of the things we've lost. We've lost that. We've lost that forgiveness and ability to learn. We're always ready to tackle, or we're always so much happier to be offended than be a teacher, and so I try really hard to not be offended, and if I offend somebody, I try to react quickly and learn where I'm coming from, or maybe they misunderstood where I'm coming from. But the dialogue is what we've lost, and that's what's split our community apart, and something that I think is very tragic for our community. But I do believe we are in a place, in this time, especially with DeSantism and Trumpism and everything that we're reeling from. But I really believe we need to come from a space of not being victimed and not being passive and starting to be, show strength and a sense of, I hate to say, but a sense of domination, to not allow ourselves to be a victim anymore. If you don't want to be victimized, you have to stand up. You have to be strong. But if your every day is looking for how are we a victim today, you remain a victim. And it's a psychological shift. That's all it is. And I really think our community is in the spot where it's time to make that psychological shift. It's time to moxie up.
Well, I'd like to talk about that for a quick second. 80 years ago, obviously, you couldn't have, you were just protecting yourself, protecting your life. Nowadays, we have advocacy groups. We have amazing groups. How can we become the advocates that our forefathers couldn't? And you're very involved in community and advocacy. Where do you see this going? And I'm going to come to you for that answer, so get ready.
Why don't you go first? I need a second to think about it. That's a fully loaded question.
Well, I think we all have to own and cultivate our strengths. I don't think we all even know, the power we have. I don't think we're aware of how we can fully utilize our potential or our resources. So just knowing that we all bring something to the table, and while everybody doesn't have to be out front with a picket fence, there is work we can all do, and holding each other accountable and not being afraid to have tough conversations, not being afraid to have solicited constructive criticism, and just understanding that even though we all have our own personal interests, there's a lot of things that we can do collectively that will also make sure we all win and we all can move forward. Because I am living not to be stagnant, I'm living for progress, but I don't only want to see myself progress, I want to see my entire community shine and feel seen and heard.
Wow, that was eloquent. How the heck am I going to follow that up?
Give it a shot, honey. Yeah.
You know, you had mentioned the word victim. I am a trans woman, and I'm victimized every day.
I'm sure.
And I'm strong.
I got that too.
I think empathy is needed as well as being
Agreed.
strong. And I think more empathy needs to be sent out to different people in our community, not just the trans community, but different components of our community. We've been beaten down, you know, alphabet soup, as they call us. So I think we need to help each other and reach our hands out to each other. I think we need to make peace with each other to create that dominance and that strength.
Yes,
you know,
agreed.
I would like to know that I could count on everybody at this table to have my back.
Of course you can.
And I would have everybody's back here.
Yes.
But this is in this form, in this setting, in this now. How do we translate that to everybody in our community, not just the community that's more seen, if that makes sense? So how can we do that?
Well, your experience like working in groups like with Hollywood Pride, and that city raised its HRC city approval score from like something like 25% or something, a ridiculously low number, up to a perfect 100.
100
that they announced at earlier this year's inaugural Hollywood Pride.
Sure.
So when you get in and you're working with organizations like that, you're working with the city and you're working with community and you're working with the community at large and our communities.
Right.
That's a place to affect change. How was your experience working with that, with the city, just on a very micro level?
So it's interesting that you say that, because my part in that whole index score like being raised was I was one of the featured person in a documentary, stories from the LGBTQ community, called Open Dialogues. And it's a 22-minute documentary with 7 different people that were interviewed from the LGBTQ plus community. So that particular documentary was played to different commissioners, different people in the Hollywood political arena, and I was on the panel answering questions, with the chief of police, blah, blah, blah. It became an emotional thing, and people got to see how real we are, with the thread of humanity in us. And when you're able to touch people with that, then they're like, oh, this person is like me. And then you break down that wall. So my point of view is that I'm by no means a pacifist, but I believe that getting people to understand that we're all the same is the key in our community and outside of our community. How to do that, I haven't figured out yet, but I'm surrounded by a lot of very intelligent people that I'm sure could help move this whole idea forward.
The one thing I'm kind of frustrated by, and I noticed this earlier this year, I posted something on one of my gay Disney groups because I figured, okay, these people, you know, a lot of the people and they took it right down. Oh, we don't want to be political. And it's like, people, I'm sorry, politics is a matter of life and death for all of us. It's a matter of life, because I guarantee you, and I'm going to get a little extreme, you know, these people are lining up, they've already talked about firing squads, some of these people. You know, and I think Benjamin Franklin said it best. We ought to all hang together, or we'll all hang separately.
Yeah.
I just want to add one more thing, if I can. I was just going to say that I think one of the it's interesting that two topics in my head collide here today, and those two topics that collide are we talked about gay history being taught to seniors in Miami-Dade, but I was, even as I listened to that story, I'm thinking, and I don't want to offend any of our viewers or because I know you're a little young too, but I feel like one of our problems is that we're worrying about teaching gay history in the schools, which we rightfully should, but we're not even doing a good job of it to our young own that are in our community. Many of them have no clue what's happened before them, and I think they are in a false sense of security, that they don't quite grasp how quickly everything could turn right back around. And so I think that part of what would align us as a community is understanding where we've all come from, how we got here, and all of the things that happened, at least in the last 50 years, maybe even longer. I mean, if we wanted to really talk about gay history, well, that's millennia, right? But we can certainly at least say, in what's kind of pertinent is what happened in this country in the last 50 years, maybe even 60 or so, or post-war or during the World War II. What brought us to where we are now as gay people and lesbian people and all of the above? But I don't think a lot of the young people even have a grasp of that at all. Mm-hmm. And so that frightens me, that we're not even focusing enough on our own community to make them aware while we fight for it in our schools, which I'm not saying we shouldn't have in schools, mm-hmm. but I think that if you're a young person and you're not aware of how it all got to be where you're at, which I think is a lot now, I think that's dangerous, because it's a false sense of security. Like, I mean, I was literally on the street and hearing a conversation in Wilton Manors one day, and these 20-somethings were talking about gay marriage, and I heard somebody say, well, it's been around for like 40 years. And I just I sat there and I was like, girl, it's shocking. No.
7 years?
Yeah, right. But
Six months is 40 years to
but that's what I'm saying. Like, they need to get the real reality, right? They need to understand how we've gotten where we're at and what we're really doing and how we've really gotten here. But to think you're so secure that this has been around forever and it's not going to go away.
But here's the thing. We've already watched them tear down Roe with the Hobbs decision, or whatever it was called. The women are waking up, and some of them are lesbian women and trans women, and maybe even some trans men who it's like, oh shit, pardon my language. Uh-huh. Please God, these girls have their gays. God knows I'm I've got my own straight women friends and they talk. I mean, I have a woman friend up in Tallahassee that we had a disagreement over the primary, and she ripped me a new one. God bless her anyway. But I certainly am taking a lesson from that recent Supreme Court decision, because it was like, it was an oh crap moment for me, because everybody was saying they're coming after contraception and gay marriage and this, that, and the other thing. And, unfortunately, it's a slow process, but, let's hope that, people talk, and, if they need to whoop me upside the head, well, here's my head. That's why there's no hair there, because of...
Don't talk to me about why there's no hair there. But hopefully marriage is going to get protected in a vote after the midterm during the lame duck session. That was excellent. Thank you, guys. Kishi, take it to church.
Next, we are proud of our special partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. Supporting that partnership, we are broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine Cathedral at the Happening Out television studios. We broadcast Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday International Service at 10:30 a.m. with more than 30,000 watching every week.
Hi, I'm Raji Narayan Singh, transgender activist, author, spiritualist, actress, and reality TV personality. And Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Love you, Raji. Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up sports from LGBTQ plus news partner and news partner, LGBTQ Nation, and writer Molly Spray-Regan. NBA fines Anthony Edwards $40,000 for using anti-gay slur on Instagram. The NBA has fined basketball star Anthony Edwards $40,000 for using an anti-gay slur. Edwards is a player for the Minnesota Timberwolves who was seen earlier this month in his Instagram story mocking a group of men standing on the sidewalk. The video was deleted later, but Edwards could reportedly be heard saying, quote, "Look at these queer-ass N-words," end quote. After backlash, he tweeted an apology, writing that what he said, quote, was immature, hurtful, and disrespectful, end quote. NBA Communications confirmed Edwards' fine in a statement released on social media. Players have been fined before for using homophobic language. In 2021, Brooklyn Nets star Kevin Durant was fined the largest amount permissible by the NBA for his direct messages to actor and comedian Michael Rappaport. Find out more at LGBTQNation.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up politics. From LGBTQ plus news partner Queerty and writer Graham Grammore. It was inevitable as gay Democrat and gay Republican are running against each other. George Santos is a Donald Trump-loving gay Republican, currently running to represent New York's 3rd Congressional District. During a recent event hosted by the Whitestone Republican Club, Santos said, quote, "All of us in this room can agree that when we look at slavery, it was barbaric. 50 years from now, we're going to look back at what we're doing in this country and we are going to say, we killed babies out of the womb, we aborted our own, that is barbaric," end quote. Santos is gay and engaged to a man and supports Don't Say Gay laws. Santos is running against Robert Zimmerman, a gay Democrat endorsed by the Victory Fund. When asked about Santos's comments, Zimmerman said, quote, "It's such an ignorant and dangerous statement to make. It is so hateful and disrespectful to women who have every right to make their own decisions about their own lives. He is more extreme than most Republicans are and dangerously divisive and radical." Find out more at Queerty.com.
LGBTQ plus 1 Minute News. Let's queer up the worldview. From LGBTQ news partner, The Advocate, and writer Izzy Ronald, 8 countries will lead LGBTQ plus inclusive campaign during Qatar World Cup. 10 European football teams, namely the Netherlands, England, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and Wales, will participate in a season-long One Love campaign promoting inclusion and opposing discrimination. Every country except Sweden and Norway has qualified for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, and each captain of these 8 nations will wear a distinctive One Love armband featuring a heart containing colors from all backgrounds during the tournament. They're kind of cute. The Netherlands FA, which is spearheading the campaign, chose the colors to represent all heritages, backgrounds, genders, and sexual identities. The armband will be worn in Qatar where same-sex relationships are a criminal offense. The idea for this specific campaign emerged in the UEFA Working Group Initiative, which was established to respond to issues surrounding Qatar's treatment of migrant workers and the LGBTQ plus community. Find out more at advocate.com.
Well, that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Are you, like most of America, part of our very large television audience watching this live LGBTQ plus news broadcast right now on Roku, Apple TV, Android TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support. If our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world.
This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of Hotspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, John Hayden, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Kishi Chad, Bob Hentschel, Franchesca D'Amore, and Frank Perko III. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ plus world, we wish you a very good night.
Good night.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus